The rain was falling hard over the construction site, turning the dirt into thick, choking mud that swallowed every footprint within seconds. A half-built glass headquarters tower loomed above like a silent giant, its steel ribs exposed against the stormy sky. Floodlights flickered through the rain, turning the entire structure into something cold, unfinished, almost alive. Inside that storm of steel and concrete, the workers were laughing. Not at a joke, not at a story. At him. An old man stood near the main support beams, soaked to the bone, his hands trembling slightly as he held a worn wooden toolbox. The paint was faded. The metal corners were scratched. It looked older than the construction site itself. He didn't speak. He didn't argue. He never did. But today, something felt wrong in the air. Because today they were firing him. "You're too slow, old man." The project manager's voice cut through the storm like a blade. He stepped forward under the steel frame, expensive suit, polished shoes, completely untouched by the mud around him. He looked at the old carpenter like he was a relic that had overstayed its time. "You've been slowing this project down for weeks," the manager said coldly. "Every task takes you twice as long. We don't need history here. We need efficiency." A few younger workers behind him smirked. One of them leaned toward the other. "He probably still measures things with his hands." Another laughed. "Probably built huts before buildings." The laughter spread quickly, easy, careless, cruel. The old carpenter didn't react. Not even a blink. He simply tightened his grip on the toolbox. Just slightly, like it was the only thing keeping him anchored. The manager stepped closer, lowering his voice now, as if addressing something beneath him. "This is a modern corporate megaproject. $1 billion investment. Not some village workshop." He grabbed the old man's work log from his hands and flipped through it dramatically. Empty pages. No digital records. No certifications. No signatures from recognized institutions. Nothing that mattered in their world. The manager smirked. "What exactly do you even contribute here?" For a moment, only the sound of rain answered. Then the old man finally spoke. His voice was low, weathered, calm. "I make sure it doesn't fall." A beat of silence. Then laughter again, louder this time. "That's what he thinks he does?" one worker said. The manager exhaled sharply, almost amused. "This is over. You're done here." He gestured toward the gate. "Pack your things. Security will escort you out." The words should have broken him. But they didn't. The old carpenter slowly turned. No anger. No protest. Just silence, so heavy it felt louder than the storm. As he walked across the muddy ground, every step sinking deeper into the earth, the mocking began again. "Careful, Grandpa. Don't slip. You'll break your hip before you break concrete." Laughter echoed under the steel skeleton of the tower. But something strange happened. The old man stopped halfway, not because he was weak, but because he was looking up, at the unfinished structure, at the chaos of beams, cables, and steel joints. And for the briefest moment, his eyes changed. Not sadness, not anger, recognition, like looking at something he once created, but no longer controlled. Then he whispered something no one heard, and walked away. 3 hours later, inside the site office, the mood had completely changed. Music played softly. Coffee cups clinked. The manager leaned back in his chair like a man who had removed an inconvenience from his life. "One less delay on the project," he said confidently. A few people laughed. Relief filled the room. Outside, the storm had weakened. The worst was over. Then, a phone rang. Sharp, sudden, violent in the quiet room. One of the engineers picked it up. At first, he nodded. Normal. Routine. Then his expression changed. Confusion. Then fear. Then disbelief. What do you mean stop construction?" The room slowly went silent. Even the music felt wrong now. The engineer swallowed hard. "Who issued the order?" A pause. His hand tightened around the phone. The central authority? The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. The manager stood up instantly. "That's impossible." But even as he said it, something inside him shifted. Doubt. Outside, the sound of engines began to grow. Low at first, distant, then louder. Multiple engines. Approaching fast. The office windows vibrated slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling. Someone walked to the glass. Then froze. Sir." His voice cracked. "Something's here." Outside, the gates burst open. Black SUVs rolled in one after another, tires cutting through the mud with controlled precision. They didn't rush. They didn't hesitate. They arrived like they owned the ground itself. Doors opened in perfect synchronization. Men in formal government suits stepped out. No company logos. No contractor badges. No negotiation energy. Authority. Pure and unquestionable. And behind them, a senior architect carried a sealed metal case. The entire construction site went still. Even the rain seemed to hesitate. The manager rushed outside immediately. This is a private project. You cannot just. The lead official raised a hand. Not aggressively. Just enough. Silence obeyed it instantly. No, he said calmly. You misunderstand. He opened the metal case. Inside, rolled blueprints. Old. Yellowed. Fragile at the edges. He placed them on a steel table and slowly unrolled them. The wind tried to pull them away, but couldn't. Something about them felt heavier than the storm. The manager leaned in and froze. A name, written in bold, handwritten ink across the bottom corner. The old carpenter's name. The man they mocked. The man they fired. The man they erased. A cold silence spread through the workers. One of them whispered, almost breaking. That's him. The official didn't react to their shock. This structure, he said, tapping the blueprint, was originally designed by him. A pause. But not in the way you think. He pulled out another sheet beneath it. Hidden layers. Structural systems. Load distribution logic far beyond standard engineering practices. This entire tower is built on his original framework. The manager shook his head quickly. No, that's not possible. He was just a carpenter. The official turned slowly toward him. His voice dropped. He was the chief structural designer of this project's foundation system. The words didn't land immediately. They sank. Slowly. Unstoppably. A young engineer stepped forward hesitantly. I've seen his markings before. All eyes turned to him. He swallowed. In the basement archives, every critical structural calculation, it's his handwriting. The truth collapsed the room into silence. He wasn't just part of the project. He was the reason it stood at all. Then the alarm hit. A deep, violent sound. Red lights exploded across the unfinished tower. Structural instability. Critical failure risk. A technician rushed in. We need the override key now. But the system didn't respond. It demanded one thing. A signature verification. Manual authorization. The original designer's input. The room froze completely. Because they had already removed him. Outside, wind slammed against the steel frame. The tower groaned like a living thing under pressure. And then, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Familiar. Everyone turned. At the edge of the site, the old carpenter stood there again. Soaked. Silent. Holding his toolbox. He walked forward without hesitation. Through chaos. Through shock. Through disbelief that had no time to form words. He stopped in front of the blueprint table. Looked down at it. Then spoke quietly. You built it wrong. No one laughed this time. No one even breathed properly. The manager stepped forward weakly. We didn't know. The old man didn't look at him. He opened his toolbox. Inside, pages of handwritten calculations. Precise. Detailed. Preserved like they were never meant to age. He placed them on the table. This is the missing support sequence. An engineer whispered, shaken. If that's correct, then the entire load path. He couldn't finish. Because he already understood. Everything they trusted was incomplete without him. The old carpenter stepped back. His voice lowered. I left it so it would survive mistakes. A pause. But not disrespect. The officials exchanged a look. Then stepped aside. Respect replacing authority. One of them spoke quietly. You should have never removed him. The old man turned toward the towering structure. The storm was fading now. And said, I didn't leave. I was removed. Hours later, the structure stabilized. The alarm stopped. The crisis dissolved into silence. Workers stood in place, unable to process what had just happened. The manager slowly walked toward the old man. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. The old carpenter closed his toolbox. The sound of the latch echoed like the end of something irreversible.